Hello, I'm Kumar Wani, an assistant professor in the Department of English at B. Raghunath College, Parbhani. I welcome you to this audio-visual lecture on Introduction to Criticism. The content of this lecture has been developed for the students of B. Raghunath College. Let's head over to the slide presentation for the detailed discussion. Title of the module is Introduction to Literary Criticism. And the learning objectives of this module are the critical method, limitations of criticism, kinds of literary criticism, and the beginning of criticism. Before we move on to the detailed discussion of what is literary criticism, let us review the definition of literature. As a student of literature, you might have read various definitions of literature given in encyclopedias, dictionaries, and other books on literature and criticism. To keep the subject simple, I have quoted here a very simple and easy to understand definition of literature. Literature is writing which expresses and communicates thoughts, feelings, and attitudes towards life. These thoughts, feelings, and attitudes are expressions of writers through the mouth of characters. Characters become the mouthpiece for the thoughts of writers. And in this way, we come to know the attitude of writer to the life. This definition of literature is very important when we try to understand what is criticism, because it is the works of the writers that we are going to understand in a particular way. And when we have the definition of literature in our mind, only then we will be able to understand what is criticism. Let's understand what is critical method. It's basically a way of reading literature. As you may be aware, there are various ways of reading literature, but to keep the topic simple, we'll discuss two of them. One, haphazard, and the other, methodical. A layman reads literature in a haphazard way, and a trained man reads it in a methodical way. It is the methodical reading of literature that is called criticism. A critic is an ideal reader. For him, no work of art is good or bad, useful or useless, enjoyable or unenjoyable, unless it is put to thorough examination. Criticism is therefore born of questioning. Its approach is like of science. As in science, disinterested application is made to the subject for understanding and its full interpretation. There are certain limitations to criticism. One is ever a slave to one's times and mental makeup. It is these limitations that make the critical approach of one age or author different from that of another and impart to it its distinctive character. No fixed principles of criticism can be applied indiscriminately to the works of one age and the other principles to another age, because writers in different ages write as per the trends of the era and their mental makeup. Now let us try to understand what are the kinds of criticism. There are three types of criticism. One is legislative criticism. It is a form of critical endeavor which lays down rules for the art of writing, largely based on standard works of literature from Greek and Latin. It is assumed that the writer, would-be writer, has only to be told how to do his work to be able to do it. Here, the interest of the writer is the priority rather than the reader. When we review the history of English criticism, it is in the Elizabethan age in England, with the possible exception of Sir Philip Sidney, there was all legislative criticism. The second type of criticism is aesthetic criticism. It treats literature as an art, an independent activity of the mind, having an end of its own, which may or may not coincide with that of religion, morality, science, or politics. The prime concern of this type of criticism is to analyze the nature of literary art and formulate theories for the interpretation. Sir Philip Sidney, John Dryden, Joseph Addison, including Coleridge, Walter Pater, and Oscar Wilde. Also, in our contemporary era, I.A. Richards were the main proponents of this kind of critical inquiry. The third type of criticism is descriptive criticism. It is the study of individual works, of their aims, methods, effects. This kind of critical inquiry is the latest one and it is the most popular among literary scholars. Descriptive criticism may draw on the legislative or the aesthetic principles of criticism to justify its conclusions, or it may follow an independent line of its own. It also assures that conclusions drawn by the reader following the principles of descriptive criticism can be cross-verified and confirmed from the work of under discussion. It is to be noted that most of the English criticism is descriptive criticism. The question is, when criticism began? It is to be noted that criticism began in ancient Greece, in the city of Athens, around 5th century before Common Era. Notable writers of this era were Achilles, Sophocles, Euripides, Socrates, and Aristophanes. Aristophanes was a creative artist as well as a critic of his time. It was in the coming times artists, writers focused mainly on creative productions and critics focused mainly on analyzing and interpreting the creative works independently. With the Aristophanes begins the first regular criticism of the Western world. Now we are moving to the end of the module. I hope you have clearly understood what is the definition of literature, what are the kinds of criticism, what is critical method, and when criticism began in the history. I hope this short video session will help you understand what is criticism. Thank you for learning with me. If you benefited from this video session, please share it with your friends and I will talk to you in the next video. Till then, take care, happy learning.